morning, Roxy Soxy.
Good morning, Tam. How are
Why
you?
do we say good morning when it's like fucking 6 p.m.?
Because we always upload our episodes like at 2 a.m. So
is that why?
feed everybody in the morning, even though we're always shooting at night.
I know. I said to Sean, I was like, doesn't it feel like Groundhog Day every single day? And he's like, that's so negative. I'm like, how is that negative? Is that not reality and the actual truth?
Yes. It is literally reality. Although we do have a change. My daughter is going to be going back to school.
I know. I'm kind of jealous. It makes me anxious thinking about it. I'm jealous.
I know. I got to say, I'm a little excited. She went for her orientation today and was out of the house for 2 hours. And we have not been away from her like this entire time.
I know.
So it was
Can't drop her anywhere.
I know. We were just like, wait, she's not in the house. We can like say whatever we want, do what, for the next.
Did you have sex?
We did not. I forgot to do it.
Damn it. I would have been like, bye kids. I would have been like, oh my God, wow. And my husband would have been like, this is so stressful, never go to school.
Swinging from the chandelier, like, let's do it.
I would have been like, yeah. I would have like had my whole outfit on. My husband would have been freaked out. He would have gone like completely to the other room and then left in the car.
You know what I should have done actually during that time is I should have given myself a facial. I should have done like a little spa sesh,
Yeah.
That would have been like a good use of my time because I could have like done some work, got some pimple, taken care of. I'm super excited. Today we have she is like a multi-hyphenate. I mean, she is a badass. She is an esthetician. She is a female business owner. She forged her way through a very saturated business, made a name for herself. She takes care of the faces of people like Demi Lovato and Lily Reinhart. I mean, she is at the top of the game, and she just has a lot of life experience, and just she's just led a very, very interesting life. So I'm super excited to talk to her today. We have Renee Rouleau. Welcome, Renee. Oh, I also should mention, she and my husband went to high school together.
I thought you were going to say dated. I was like, that's awkward.
They probably did. Like, okay, Renee, now's the time to tell me.
I know. Oops. That one party at Hamlin's house.
I had no clothes on.
I love it so much. I love it. We're super excited to have you, Renee. How's everything in Austin?
Everything's great. Yeah. I mean, I've lived here for almost 6 years. I was in Dallas for 19 years prior to, but Austin's amazing. It was just such a good decision to move here, a little life change, spice things up a little bit, but Austin is where all the cool kids are. It's
because I'm here, right, Roxy?
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Please tell me where to go and what to see and like who to, because I had a facialist in LA for 15 years. And I've been here now for 2 months and I'm breaking out like crazy. Like you can tell it's probably stress,
It's maskne.
It's whatever. But I'm I don't even know where to go, who to see. It's just like a bit of a disaster over here.
Yeah, I don't get skin treatments too often these days, but yeah, I can DM you a couple. I mean, I can message you a couple recommendations of people who I've heard are good and things like that. But
I need the whole skin of my face, the first layer to come off.
Yeah, just remove it. Just remove it.
You take it.
So let's take it back a little bit because I have so much to talk to you about. So you got into this business 30 years ago, and the business at that time was already pretty saturated. So how in the hell did you carve out this niche for yourself and really create the brand recognition and the name that you have?
Yeah. So, I mean, but let me correct you on that. 30 years ago, it actually was, no one even knew what an esthetician was. It wasn't until a good 10 years later that it became a little more saturated. But when I first became an esthetician, it wasn't really a popular profession, it was kind of for ladies who lunch, women that just had money to spend and just had time on their hands. It wasn't, because at the time, if you had real skin issues, you would see a dermatologist, right? So estheticians were painted as just kind of dermatologists would say, well, yeah, if you just want to go take a little nap and kind of get your skin a little rubbed on or a little moisturized, go see an esthetician. But otherwise, we're the ones that handle skin. And so it was interesting because last night I did an Instagram live from a really amazing dermatologist, Dr. Joshua Zeichner, and he asked me to do an IG live with him. And I mentioned to him, I said, this is such a big honor because our profession was frowned upon back in the late 80s. Like it wasn't a thing. And to now fast forward 30 years and have this, really amazing dermatologist who's well-renowned asking me to do an Instagram live. It was just such an honor. So yeah, so back then it was really seen as fluffy. And we also didn't have, we had a steam machine, we had our hands, but like, fast forward today, we have access to all these, modalities that can really create positive change in the skin, but it was pretty basic back then. But yeah, so I just, my grandmother was a hairstylist and she used to own her own hair salon called the Powder Puff Beauty Shop. And I grew up in that environment, and, beauty was always in my blood, and college was not my path. And, they always say, find out, figure out what your passion is and find a way to make money doing it. And when I heard there was a profession where people would let me squeeze and pick their zits, I was like, you mean people will pay me to do this? Because I was always like the picker, and anyone, my brother, if he'd have like a blemish on his back, I'm like, hold still, let me get that. And to find out I could actually make a career doing that was amazing. So
you were like the OG pimple popper.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like my worst possible thing is thinking about popping someone's pimple. Like I could actually almost vomit in my mouth if I thought about it. Why does it excite you?
To be well, it's just immediate gratification, right? It's just like there's something under there. You release it, done. Check the box. Like it's great. But now, and I won't even get into it. But a few of the stories that I've had with that through the years is less than appetizing. So
can you please tell us one of the stories? One of the
yes.
You don't have to tell us tell us the worst.
Yeah. Okay, oh my God. So, trigger warning if anybody has a weak stomach.
Yeah. Which is me. So I should just bring a bucket right next to me just in case.
Right?
Well, probably my most memorable was it's happened probably more than once, I'm sure, but like when you squeeze someone with a lot of acne and it spits onto your face, it is, God. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, and you're like wiping your face.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's just,
and that's pus. Fun. That's someone else's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's
like
it's
infection.
Not pretty. Yeah.
So you need like actual PPE. You need like the face shield.
Well, for sure. Yeah. But also back in the early years, like we didn't, we just we wouldn't wear goggles. Not that I always wear goggles, but like now I didn't know that you should keep like the magnifying lamp between you and the face that way, but I always had good vision and kind of the magnifying. I didn't need that magnification. So I always just kind of used it for lighting, but not like as a bodyguard between me and their infection.
So what causes acne then? So, I don't think Roxy and I grew up with acne. I do have a few pimples today from stress and hormones, but real acne, where does that come from?
So that's the $1 million question. And if I had the answer for it, I would be even bigger than I was. But the problem is, and I work a lot because a lot of my celebrity clients are in their 20s and young 20s. And so I deal a lot with acne and adult acne. And in my skincare line, we have a lot of products that are great for that. But it's, we don't really know the cause, right? Like it's not as black and white as you can think. So like, for example, some people will go, I think it's from my talking on my phone and it hitting my face, or dirty pillowcases, or I think I touch my face a lot, or I don't eat so well, or if only it were that simple, right? And it's just not. And I would say that the most kind of black and white it can get is dairy. So without a doubt, if somebody gets like cystic acne, those hard sore nodule cysts on the chin and jawline area, a lot of times it's dairy. So if you cut out the dairy, that can be the cure, right? But when it's kind of all over the face, it comes once in a while, maybe it's there often, like it's just, sometimes it's a case of bad luck. We know there's a genetic component to it. We know that it's people who have oilier skin. We know it's all hormonally triggered, but like, if I'm like, oh, it's hormonal breakouts. Well, what are you supposed to do about that? Right. You can get your hormones checked, and sometimes you can, go on birth control pills, and that might have a positive effect. Sometimes a negative effect, sometimes we know it's hormonally based. Sometimes when people are pregnant, right, their skin was really clear, they get pregnant, and all of a sudden they're breaking out, or vice versa. People who always had acne will say, oh my gosh, I'll just keep having kids because my skin is so clear while I'm pregnant. So, there's all sorts of other different reasons why someone, might get breakouts. But what I will say is people who eat clean and healthy can still get breakouts, and people who eat junk food can have perfectly clear skin, right? So it's kind of like a lot of people put a lot of like, oh, I'll eat really clean and healthy and I won't break out. Well, that's not always the case either. So part of my job when I'm working with clients, and part of my skincare blog that I've had since 2005 is intended to kind of educate. But with clients, I'm always about kind of playing detective. I'm literally like a detective. So throughout a treatment, when I'm giving to a client, I am not the person that if you come to me for a facial or skin treatment, I'm just going to go make you go to sleep for an hour. We are talking the entire time because I'm asking you a million questions, because it's my job at the end of the treatment to try to see if I can find some tie-in to why they might break out and make recommendations for what they can do once they leave me and go back out into the real world. And so again, dairy is the one that definitely can be a real big trigger, but a lot of times we just don't know, it's not that easy.
It does sound like it's different for each person too. Correct?
Oh, it's 100% different. Yes.
Yeah. And you say that there are like 9 different skin types, and because usually we hear, okay, you're either oily or you're dry or you're a combination, but it's never like that detailed. Like it's never like the 9 different skin types. So how did you kind of discover that, and what is it?
Yeah. So what makes my skincare line unique is it's based on 9 different skin types. So when I became an esthetician, when I went to school, they teach you about dry, normal, and oily skin types. And then also something called Fitzpatrick skin types, which has to do the color of your skin, kind of deeper skin tones, fair, and everything in between. And so I was like, okay, great. I started becoming an esthetician, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, like dry, normal, and oily. Okay, that's, that might tell me how light or how heavy a cream should be for them, but it doesn't really talk about anything else, right? So breakouts, for example, breakouts are all not equal because one, it could be not all types of breakouts are equal. Cystic breakout, cystic acne is very different than what's called pustular acne, which are the ones that come to the surface, right? Cysts stay down, pustular acne comes out. Also, how often you break out, right? Like a 16-year-old that has acne everywhere is different from someone who's 35 years old and only gets 2 breakouts around their cycle. And you can't treat those the same, right? People with dry skin, can get breakouts, and people with oily skin can. And then you throw in, melasma, people get hyperpigmentation from pregnancy.
Post-birth. Yeah.
That's right. Right. So then you're dealing with that. Then you're dealing with, sunspots. Then you're dealing with rosacea. And so there's all these, all different types of sensitivity, because not all sensitivity is equal. And so I really realized that the skin was just way more complicated than that. So I determined early on that there were 9 types of skin. And when I started Renee Rouleau Skincare in 1996, which is will be 25 years old in August, I created a skincare line based on those 9 skin types. So people can take the skin type quiz at reneerouleau.com. They're put into one of the 9 skin types, and we have 50 products. They get a curated routine for their skin type. So the net of that is that it's very specific to the needs of their skin. And so they feel like they're really getting a customized routine that's going to, provide solutions, drive results, but very customized. So to this day, I've never added on a 10th skin type. Like I really hit it right with the 9. And that's kind of what makes my line unique, is that I'm not, I'm not one of those brands that, oh, it's for all skin types. Here, this product is for all skin types, because all skin types aren't equal.
When we talk about anti-aging, like Roxy and I are getting older, and I've just started looking into anti-aging and the procedures that come with anti-aging, and it's like a whole new world for me. So I'm in my mid-30s, and that's sort of when yes, I think in your late 20s, you start to see certain little things happen to your skin. A few crow's feet, you lose a bit of elasticity and some collagen. But I think as you start to get into your 30s and mid 30s, and then, close to 40, mid 40s, it just starts to rapidly keep going. So now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, so there's all these procedures which are anti-aging. which ones actually work, which ones are so invasive that if you go to the wrong person, you know, can really damage your skin. Like I was thinking maybe just do a topical peel. If you go to the wrong person, I don't know if that's a good thing. You know, at this point in my life, Roxy's life, what anti-aging treatments should we start to look at?
So as an esthetician, I mostly work with skin texture, like the actual skin, right? So making your pores look, you know, as small as humanly possible, making fine lines around the eyes look as diminished as possible. My job is to, you know, try to help melasma, you know, even out hyperpigmentation, help with post-breakout marks, help with clogged pores, help with blackheads. So I'm really, an esthetician is more about the skin. Once you're talking about drop in skin elasticity, the face starting to kind of look thinner because you know you don't have that plumpy bed mattress under the skin, then you want to see more of like a cosmetic dermatologist, and they do things like obviously fillers, there's Botox, there's microneedling treatments, you know, there's all sorts of things more in that realm. So so I think, you know, at the end of the day, skincare, I mean, you need a good skincare routine, and that's the foundation for everything. Certainly sunscreen, proper application of sunscreen, and having all the knowledge of that will help the integrity of the skin. But yeah, I mean, I think Botox, I think fillers, a lot of people do like the threading now. I've heard kind of good and bad stories about that. Certainly there's traditional cosmetic surgery for tone, but the sad part is like, you know, for loss of tone, you can't just put a skin cream on and all of a sudden your skin's going to be tight, right? So, so for people looking for, you know, looking more youthful, it's a combination of getting the skin to look as smooth as possible, and then adding in some professional treatments that can play a supporting role in your overall look.
You know, it's so interesting right now. I know Tim and I obviously have both been through pregnancy and had kids. And I know when we were both pregnant, we really kind of discovered this whole like clean beauty sort of product, you know, like everyone's talking clean beauty and it's such a buzzword, and it's sort of thrown all over the place right now, right? Everything is supposed to be clean and natural and all this stuff. So does clean beauty like really exist? Like, is there 100% organic, you know, beauty products that are 100% clean, or is that just like a term that's being overused?
So there are no FDA regulations for when a brand calls themselves natural or clean. I mean, it's all up to interpretation of the brand. So I would say that in the past 10 years, people who got ahead of it, they started to remove cruddier ingredients, let's just call it that, more petroleum derived ingredients, and then they called themselves kind of clean. But today, any skincare brand, like, clean is like the new normal, right? No one's launching a skincare brand with crappy ingredients, right? Or ones that are deemed to not have good reputation. So it's really like, in this day, like 5 years ago, 8 years ago, that was kind of a, you know, like, wow, this is a little more, you know, this is innovative. Some people are choosing not to use these ingredients. But today everyone's not using anything crappy anymore, right? So it's not that unique anymore. There's no brand that's coming out with a quote unquote dirty skincare line, right? So I think the thing is, so yeah, every brand has its interpretation. I have a great blog post on what my definition of clean beauty is. But it's just kind of for a lot of people, it's just a big marketing play. I think, you know, I think that every brand, when you formulate a product, you decide what the intent of the product is. I think that I think science needs to come into play. And so brands that don't embrace science, that's how they're choosing to do it. But as you get older, you need some of that science in it. Now, science doesn't have to be bad, right? It doesn't mean you're going to put something on an ingredient is toxic, but like, you know, we're fighting kind of a losing battle here, right? And so for my brand, I choose the best from nature and I choose the best from science, right? And so I'm kind of picking the best of everything, but also to make sure the product drives results. So I think, you know, if you're, you know, if you're 20 years old and, you don't have any problems with your skin, sure, you can do an organic line, right? But all of a sudden, once you kind of need to start seeing results, you're like, I don't think this is working for me anymore. But it's everyone's personal decision on how they want to, what kind of products they want to use. And I think you just need to trust a brand but at the end of the day, it's illegal to sell products that are harmful. So brands that try to really play up certain ingredients and make it sound like anyone that uses those is like trying to kill you. Like it's illegal to sell products that are harmful. Like you can't, the FDA would never have that. So a lot of it is marketing. And this is another interesting thing. So because you hear more and more about clean, a lot of people bring animal testing into it, right? So now clean is associated. We're a clean brand and we don't do animal testing. So like Leaping Bunny or PETA, they're kind of super popular now with people getting those certifications because they want to say we do, we don't do animal testing. But here's the truth. In the US, you couldn't even find a lab to do animal testing, even if you wanted to, right? There's no such animal testing even done in the United States anymore. China, different story. But in the US, if I wanted to start a line and I wanted it tested on animals for whatever reason, I couldn't even find a lab. So when you hear a brand promoting, we don't do animal testing, it's very much marketing, right? Because it's just not done anymore. Literally, you can't. Now, back many years ago, Roxy, you're from Dallas, but I remember, so I got a Leaping Bunny certification a long time ago when it was a big deal, when animal testing was still being done. Living in Dallas, Mary Kay was there. Mary Kay was one of the brands that was that did animal testing for a long time, long after, it was not politically correct to do so. So, I remember those days when brands still did animal testing, and I felt super proud that I purposely, got the Leaping Bunny certification and didn't do it. So it was unique back then because it was still being done. It's just not being done today. So that's just like a big myth. So anyone who's like, oh, we don't do animal testing, you just don't even do it anymore. Like you can't even, you just ask any cosmetic chemist to find you a place to do it. They're like, I don't even know of a place in the US.
Oh, wow. Aren't some bigger brands still using, like you just said, that not a lot of brands use those, the dirty, unclean chemicals, but don't some of these brands still use the dirty dozen, like the parabens, like the BHA and BHT and the dyes and the perfumes and the when I remember formaldehyde, preservative, like aren't they still using those ingredients that, yes, they're not harmful, they won't kill you, but then to what extent could they still damage your health when it comes to your hormones? Or some of them have been connected to cancer. Like aren't some of these brands still using those dirty dozen chemicals?
Well, it all is based on research and data, right? What is the science showing? And the whole parabens thing, I won't even go down that long road because it's kind of a long story, but there is no scientific proof that, that parabens are harmful. There is just no data that shows it. And there's a reason why all of a sudden that became buzzy or whatever. Now it's just kind of frowned upon because it got such a bad reputation, but no one is showing the scientific evidence that it's harmful for you. So you really have to go back to the research because talk is cheap, right? Anyone can be like, oh, these ingredients are harmful. Show me the data, show me the research. Now, in the case of certain ingredients that, you're calling dirty, it's also based on percentages, right? So like at the levels in which they're being used in skincare products, there's no data to show. It's when it's extreme, high, crazy levels that would never even be put in skincare anyway. So that's really what it boils down to. I'm on Clubhouse a lot and there's so many clean beauty discussions about that, but no one is able to show any proof that, a lot of these ingredients are bad. Yes, we know like in nail polish and the high amount of exposure that nail artists are getting exposed to with, certain chemicals, but, so that's, there's some debate on that, but the amount of exposure is so high. It was something like, I remember reading some research about how something like, you would have to eat, and this is eat, right? Not even smell. You would have to eat like, and don't quote me on this, but it was something like you would have to eat like 14 bottles of nail polish a day for, 10 years for it to then, mess with your hormones. But who would do that, right?
Oh my God, there is a show. There is a show on MTV that people that eat these kind of like inedible objects.
What show is it? It's my new show now that the
like,
great baking British whatever's over.
And the girl literally would drink nail polish by the bottle, like several bottles a day. And she would take the brush, and it was like a whole thing, and she would lick the brush. Like,
you say that's a vitamin deficiency.
I think so. It's
like when you have low iron, you crave ice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why when you eat a lot of ice when you're pregnant, because you have low iron. A lot of it's deficiencies, and that's why we digress.
Is that why I drink tequila too?
Yes, you have a deficiency.
Yes.
It's called a David deficiency.
Right.
It's called "Get away from me, David. I'm drinking tequila." Deficiency.
It's so funny too, Renee, because it's like I love having experts like you on the show, because I'm always so curious. I feel like if you're not an expert, all these like kind of secret like things, but what are women especially not doing at home to take care of their skin that maybe you're doing? Like, is there, maybe it's whether it's like frequency or a certain product that you use or like what you eat. What do you think that you do that women at home are not doing?
I mean, so it's always about like, what's the secret, right? What's the secret? And there's no magic cream in theory. It's about making your skin a priority. The people that put in the work are going to get the results. The people that are lazy will get less results. Now, we know that there's certain, ingredients that really can be a game changer for the skin. So you also want to tap into those. So one being vitamin C, peptides, retinol or prescription retinoids. Those are kind of like in sunscreen, of course. But those are kind of like the magic ingredients. So just making sure you're tapping into a lot of those. I think for me, I haven't had a lot of sun exposure. I grew up in a lot of places with a lot of snow, Boston, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Minnesota and Wisconsin, we had 2 months of summer. And I mean, literally in June, there's still ice in the middle of a lake in Minnesota. So it's like, I didn't spend a lot of time as a kid in the sun. So it's cumulative, right? Like I didn't grow up in Florida. My skin would look so different if I was a Florida girl. So, we know that, throughout a lifetime, the amount of sun exposure you get is really has an effect. And that's why it's so great that there's awareness of that now younger people are wearing sunscreen. Mothers are putting sunscreen in and, hats on their children. And so they'll, be better off down the road. But yeah, I just think, having, I have a great blog post about like 10 skincare secrets I swear by or something. And, so that's on my blog, but it's just having good lifestyle habits and taking care of yourself. And again, making your skin a priority, but sun protection. I mean, the number one reason why we'll get premature skin aging is UV light. And I say UV light, I don't say sun. Yes, sun, but there's days when it's cloudy out and it's winter and, people up on the East Coast, they just had a snowstorm. But any daylight, anytime you don't have the lights on, so even in your house, all those rays come in, even on a cloudy day, rainy day, whatever. So really the best thing you could do is wear sun protection 365 days a year, sun up, sundown.
Damn, we're fucked.
I know. I used to do that. And now I'm just like, I can't even with I have a 2-year-old kid. I just was like, I'm just proud that I changed my underwear today. I'm like, that is a win in my book. I was like, I have clean underwear. Screw my skin. But I was actually starting to research collagen, like ingesting collagen. Is that something that you think can help your skin, or is it just a fad?
I mean, again, it goes back to science and data. There's no real science that shows that it's going to have an effect. Could it help the greater good? Sure. Like, and it's one of those things too, like there are certain things that you can do that you're also not going to see a result from, but they're good for you. So for example, eating carrots, eating broccoli, right? Getting antioxidants. You're not going to eat broccoli and all of a sudden your skin's going to go glow, right? But it's good for you because there's vitamins. So I think that goes into good lifestyle habits. So I think ingesting collagen isn't going to hurt anyone, but there's just not a lot of proof that shows it's doing a lot. But I don't personally take it because I just haven't seen data that, it's just, I pick and choose what I'm going to invest my time in and what's a priority. That's not one for me. I'd rather invest my time in, not that, it takes 2 seconds to ingest collagen, but I'm just saying, like, there's other things that I'm going to put my energy on, and that's not one of them.
Well, speaking of investments, there's so many like devices on the market right now, and so many people are giving themselves like at-home facials, and they're trying to get, they have a picture of like J-Lo up on the fridge, and they like want her skin, and they think like, if I purchase like one of these devices, whatever it may be, that I will be able to do that with these devices. What do you think about that? Like, is there a device that you think gives somebody like that kind of glowy, dewy thing that they could do at home, or is it always best to go to your esthetician?
So I'll go back to, again, time and energy, right? All those devices take time out of your life, right? Like, if, you have to take 10 minutes or whatever it is to use it properly. I think, of all the devices, I think the one that is worthwhile, but again, you have to use it consistently and all the time, is like the New Face machine, which is like the electrical muscle type stimulation, microcurrent.
Writing all this down.
I know.
Like as we're talking. Sunscreen, New Face machine.
I know. I have if you search my blog for home devices, I think is what the search is, or devices, I give a review of all of them. But I think, it's because it's good for muscle tone atrophies, and, keeping good muscles. It's kind of like lifting weights, right? Like if you lift some weights, you're going to get a pump in your bicep. And so the skin will look tighter. You get a little muscle, because when you have muscles under there, they support the skin, so the skin doesn't hang as much. Now, in the case of Botox, you're trying to put those muscles to sleep. So that's a different story for forehead and whatnot. But, but I think for jowls and things like that, I think that can be beneficial. But it's one of those things like doing sit-ups, right? If you do sit-ups regularly, you're going to get the results. Same with a microcurrent machine. If you use it, you're going to get the results. But if you're only using it once in a while, don't even waste your time. It's not going to work.
Oh. What about those light face? I just got one.
Yeah, the face light mask thing.
And I was like, do I open it? Do I wear it? I do feel like when I go to my facialist in Los Angeles, she does use the light machine. And I do notice a difference. But again, it could be all topical. So how do you feel about those light face masks?
So part of why so if you're going to see an esthetician, she's doing a lot of different things to your skin. So your skin's going to look great afterward anyway. How do you know that it was from the light, right? Was it from because she exfoliated your skin? She did a light skin peel? Was it because she improved your skin barrier with hydration and now your skin's more light reflective? Like, was it really the light that did it? My answer is no. So there is some data showing there that it can be helpful, but again, it's not an immediate gratification, right? I think of LED lights. Again, I don't personally use one. It's just not where I invest my time, but I think it's going to be like eating broccoli. I think it could help the greater good, but it's not one of those machines that if you do at home, you're going to take it off. And again, you're going to see this big change. And people who swear by it, I always, like some of my colleagues, I'm always like, what does it actually do? Like, meaning, like, what kind of results people will they see? And they'll say, oh, the skin looks radiant. Well, what's radiant mean, right? Or like, oh, it makes it look glowy. Well, that's just a really like not defined term. Now, if you tell me it totally lightens brown spots, it, softens lines, like, then I'm going to be more convinced, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. So that's just my opinion.
So we need to get the microcurrents is what you're saying. Get the microcurrent. I
just ordered it, Roxy. It's coming right now. It's coming by the end of this podcast.
Well, I'll say this, hands down, using retinol or prescription retinoid is that has to be it, right? Okay. So it's always about it's what you do day in and day out, right? Every morning and night, you're doing your thing. And then if you have extra time, you add on some of those things, but make sure your skincare routine is solid and you're doing all the right things, because that's the foundation for everything.
See, Tammin, we need to be on it. Like, we should be doing this every night.
I'm just so not on it. I get so, to be honest with you, Roxy, my husband had COVID, Renee. So, it's been 5 weeks and he hasn't had it for a couple of weeks, but he's struggling still with post-COVID symptoms. And it's just like, I just gave like 2021. I was like, it's going to be my year. I have like slept in my makeup for 5 weeks. I say makeup. Who's putting on makeup? I'm not putting on makeup.
You cannot tell the esthetician that.
I'm so exhausted. 2 small kids, have my husband. I was taking care of him for 3 weeks. Thought he wasn't, going to make it. It got really bad. It was just a horrible situation. And then you have that PTSD and you have the post. And so you just don't put a lot of time into yourself. You don't put a lot of time into your skin, because when you're struggling, it's hard, and that's why I think in COVID, a lot of people aren't taking care of their skin because they're just like, fuck it. They're just like, I'm to the end of my tether. I don't matter. But that is, again, what we shouldn't think, because when we take care of ourselves, we feel better. So yes, Roxy, after that, whatever I just spoke about, I'm going to start looking after my skincare starting tonight.
We need to prioritize.
Well, here's what I'll say. Right?
Yeah.
Well, but here's what I'll say. I mean, Roxy, you're absolutely right. Like you should wash your face every night, right? That's kind of a sin to not do that for estheticians. But not washing your face at night, let's talk about what that does for the skin. Not washing your face tonight is probably going to be kind of clogging your pores. It's, your skin's going to get dehydrated because you need to wash and put moisture back in. So moisture evaporation is going to be caused. And so your skin's going to look a little crepey if you're not exfoliating, blah, blah, blah. So there will be some skin textural, issues, but really, there's no major harm being done, right? Your skin's not going to be in the healthiest place. But again, knowing that sun protection is the most important thing, that's going to make the biggest difference, because that's the number one cause of premature aging. So what you can do is, at the very least, if you do nothing at all, if you never wash your face, never do anything, go get like a mineral powder. And let's just say you didn't wash your face at night, you woke up and you still had a full face of makeup on. Go buy a mineral powder and just dust that on your face, because then at least during the day, you're not getting the most dangerous and harmful thing to your skin anyway, right? So, at the very least, just dust a powder on and get that sun protection on, and then everything else is up for grabs after that.
That's a good point. I've never heard of that. Like to do like the mineral powder like that.
Well, again, because it's UV light. That's what's damaging your skin. That's washing your face isn't going to cause you to age faster, or not washing your face. It's not going to cause you to age faster. It's just going to, again, your skin texture isn't going to look as great as it should, but that's not, that's not that bad. Right. So again, I mean, you had a lot of stress, can't do much, children, whatever, just dust on mineral powder and make sure your skin's protected from any UV light that sees it.
I thought it was interesting. I was looking at your website and looking at some of your quotes and things, and this one really kind of stuck with me. You said that you like to embrace a little bit of danger every day, which I thought was so cool. I'm like, how dangerous are we talking?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Is not washing your face dangerous? Because what danger are we talking?
Yeah, is this like a new development, or is this something like you've always done?
So I call it a buzz. I've always seeking like a buzz in life, something that just gets me excited, right? Like I seek that. And I've been this way since I've been a kid. I was always a little rebellious, not in a crazy bad way, but I was the youngest of 4 and I was the wild child, as many youngest children are. And I just love like that buzz, or like the feeling of just like adrenaline, or just like that excitement. Right. And I think what happens when you get older, you get a lot of that excitement in your teens and your 20s, right? Because you're free, you don't have responsibility. Well, I started my first business in Wellesley, Mass when I was 21. So I became a business owner when I was 21. Lots of responsibility. Everyone's at college, having fun, and I'm managing employees. And then I sold my half of the business, moved to Dallas, started Renee Rouleau when I was 26. And had 25 years. So I've had a lot of responsibility from an early age. And so I always look like, how can I still have fun and get like that buzz in my life? And so I got into motorcycle riding, and, I get into like, I don't know, just every day I just try to look at something like talking to a stranger, or just doing something that like, just kind of like gets me excited, right? Like gets me out of my comfort zone. I'm always looking not to be like same old. I like to keep people guessing. I like to I don't know. So I just try to always weave little things in my life that create a little fun. And that's why I also for workouts, like I go and do hill sprints for 20 minutes. I'll wear a weighted vest because like the buzz I get after from working out is like just so fun for me. And
so you're kind of like an adrenaline junkie a little bit. Huh?
Yeah. I am. I mean, yeah, for sure. And like I'm going on a girls trip in a couple weeks, snowmobiling in Wyoming, and they're basically like these dirt bikes on skis, basically. And so that's super fun. And yeah, just trying to. But I'm defying aging. And what I mean by that is when we get older, we have responsibilities. We're older. That's not appropriate for you to do at your age or whatever. And we also just get a little boring, right? Like there's less opportunities to have fun. And so I'm just always looking to like, how can I bring a little spice to my life and just keep things fun and exciting? And sometimes it's, a lot of times it's just going and doing something new that I haven't done and just something to keep life interesting.
So you were married, and Roxy told me this story, and your husband was diagnosed with cancer. How were you able to navigate such a horrible thing to happen in your life? For me, I just even having this COVID come through our house and feeling like I might lose my husband.
Sure.
I didn't even know how to function. Like I don't know how people lose people who are their loves of their lives and then keep going. So can you explain how you were able to navigate grief?
Yeah. So, there's usually two ways that people pass away, either instantly, right, from a car accident or from a disease, which is a little longer term. Most people, if they die from a disease, you have a couple years advance notice, right? Someone will have it, they'll fight it, they'll get better, then it comes back again. And so there's usually like a couple years in there, I would say. I mean, I don't know if that's actually accurate, but that's kind of what you hear about most. And he was perfectly healthy. And then one day got a sharp pain in his stomach. And within about 36 hours, it became so unbearable. And he went to the emergency room. And a week later, they told him he had 6 months to live, and he died 2 days shy of 6 months. So being in a doctor's office and someone being told they have 6 months to live, and that was kind of generous. They gave him that. The type of cancer he had, by the time you have symptoms, it's already in stage 4. So, and the symptoms came on fast as they did. So we had 6 months notice of his that he was going to be, dying. And, it was really challenging because you're trying to make sense of it, right? Like the first weekend, I took him to Malibu and I said, let's just get out of town. Let's go to the beach. Let's just get near the water and kind of talk through this. Like, how do you even process that? 6 months, like, are you kidding me? And yeah, we were together for 22 years, and I have 2 stepchildren that I got to know when they were really young. And so as a family, we're all just trying to process this. And then combined with that, there was a lot of pain with his type of cancer. So watching someone, like when you think of someone like they have advance notice, it sounds all beautiful and, oh, you had time to have all those conversations. And it's like the movies and like, oh, it's just, and it's like his cancer was associated with a lot of pain as well. So watching someone you love in a lot of pain and knowing they're dying is a really, I just had never experienced anything like that. And also I think like, we've all dealt with death but it's our grandparents, but they were already 85, it's coming, right? And to not have any preparation of knowing it's coming was very challenging. It also made it challenging because my husband joined my company 12 years into the company and was our COO. So he was a leader in my company. He was my work husband and my life husband. So that made it really challenging because now I'm losing a leader and somebody who I trusted and really relied on. And so trying to, keep my team and the troops supported and knowing it's going to be okay and stepping up in my leadership role, was certainly a muscle I had to exercise because I'm trying to have a tough, strong face for them. I can confidently say that there were definitely times when I said a car accident would have been much easier than this, because of the pain that he was in was excruciating. And also, he didn't want to take any medication because he knew his body was, he knew he was losing his body, but he wanted to keep his mind. And so to him, it was, he can handle the pain, even though it was just very hard to watch. And part of like the challenge was he had tumors on his liver that sent ammonia to his brain that caused psychosis and anger. So there were a lot of really hard times when he wasn't himself, but his wish was to not be medicated. Towards the end, he finally got medicated. And was willing to take the medication. But so there were a lot of challenges, but looking back on it now, you know, I loved every minute of it. I wouldn't have changed a thing. He got things off of, you know, checked off his bucket list in those last 6 months, you know, while, you know, during the times when he did feel good. You know, we were able to, you know, say to each other, do we have any regrets? And, you know, to be able to be together for 22 years and we both have no regrets in our time together. We didn't have to apologize for anything. Like we held ourselves, you know, we respected each other. And that was certainly a proud moment. You know, there was just nothing I had to apologize for, nor did he. And that's really special to me. But I think the beauty of someone of that advance notice is you get to have those conversations and they can share their wishes for you. So for both me and his children, he did get to tell us all those things. And I think, you know, when the best gift we could give him is after he passes away, not bury our head in the sand and just give up. You know, there's when someone dies, certainly there's a piece of you that dies as well. But it wasn't about like, don't cry, Renee, and be tough and strong. When I cried, I cried. You know, when I'm weak, I'm weak. It's not that I was going to not lean into that grief because that's part of the healing. But the best gift I could give him is to make him proud and carry on his legacy. And part of that, I remember, you know, when he got sick, I went, I don't think I can ride the motorcycle anymore. And he was the one that got me into motorcycle riding. And we've ridden all over the world. We've ridden in Greece, we've ridden in Cape Town. I mean, you know, that was a passion of ours. And he was like, no, Renee, you know, but I had that moment of weakness and he's like, no, keep riding. I want you. And he actually he wanted me to get a new motorcycle. He worked with me to figure out what I should get. And so I ended up getting a new motorcycle after he passed away. And that's the best gift I can give him is just keep on moving. And I think that's, you know, when people can't move on, you know, that's, and especially if someone died, you know, suddenly, right? They didn't get to hear those words, right? I was able to hear those words. I know what he wanted for me. And that's the best way to honor him is to live my best life and make him proud. And that's what I've tried to do.
Well, going along with that, Renee, you know, I followed your journey closely on social media with your posts, like as you were kind of going through everything. And then even after, and I just thought it was so beautiful, the posts that you would put up about him, because even afterwards, he seemed very much still present, you know, and it was like your posts were so uplifting, you know, like seeing him in those funny moments when he was clowning around and being fun. It could be, why was it important to you to kind of, you know, keep with that sort of, keep with the journey in that way, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And thank you, Roxy. I appreciate that. I asked him, you know, how he felt about me speaking publicly about this. And I've been on different podcasts, grief podcasts, and you know, whatever. And he wanted me to. If he wanted it to be private and me not share it, whatever, I would do that. But I mean, he was definitely a private person, but he wanted me to, because if his story or whatever could inspire people or help people, that's his legacy, right? At the end of the day, when someone dies, what they say is, and this is what he said, will I be remembered? Did my life make a difference? And so for me to be able to share the stories, a lot of what I shared on social media were those 6 months. How does someone handle, when you're handed that news, how do they handle that? Right? Like, and the way he handled it, and, the experiences we went through, I shared those because there were life lessons in all of that. And so, you know, his passing, I am, you know, the lessons I've learned from those 6 months and all of that journey are just the best. I mean, you just could never read that in a book. And so I wanted to just share all the lessons that I learned that inspire my life to today. And so, yeah, if people go back to, I guess he passed away in November of 2018. So if you go to my old Instagram posts at Renee Rouleau, back from kind of that time frame, you can read all of them, grab a box of tissue.
Yes.
But I really wanted to share the beautiful stories of things that happened. And that's part of just, you know, letting him know that his life did matter and he did make a difference. And when I mean, at the time, I mean, and for a long time after, I would get so many DMs, and 2 separate people DM'd me and told me that they were going to kill themselves. They were going to commit suicide. But the stories I shared, they didn't, because of Florian. And I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But he would have loved that, you know, like that's, who wouldn't have loved to, you know that your life made a difference. And he saved 2 lives that I know of. And, you know, it's just beautiful. So I think, you know, grief is really hard. I thought grief was every day would get better. So first week I'd say, okay, I made it past a week. If I can make it past a week, I can make it past 2 weeks. And all of a sudden week 5 hits and I'm crying as much as I did week 1. And I go, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen this way. Well, I quickly learned that like, it's going to do what it's going to do. And so part of a lot of the lessons I learned through his passing is surrendering, you know, surrendering. We try to control everything. We think we can control everything. And I remember like the hospice nurse. So when you're being a caretaker for someone who's sick, it gets to the point where he starts to lose his appetite. And you associate that with, okay, this is the end. He's not hungry anymore. So all of a sudden he's starting to lose weight. And as a caregiver, you're trying to force him to eat, right? Because I'm like, oh my gosh, because to me, food is how you sustain yourself. So if he's not eating, he must be dying. And somehow I have this control over, if I can get him to eat, I'm going to keep him to live, right? And I think most people would do that. And so he wouldn't want to eat. So I would talk to the hospice nurse. I'm like, he's not wanting to eat. Like, what can I do? You know? She says, Renee, if he doesn't want to eat, don't make him eat. That's his body is going through this process. And if his body is not wanting to accept food, you know, respect that. Like his body will tell him what he needs. And it was just like that surrendering, you know, of just like, somehow I thought if I could get him to eat a banana, I'm going to make him live longer. And so learning to let go and learning to accept death and really just surrender. The body's going to do what it's going to do. And I don't have the power to interfere with that. Mother Nature is far too strong than me. And so there was just so many surrendering lessons in it, and surrendering to grief, surrendering to crying, surrendering to what is. And so again, I try to use social media as a way to share a lot of those life lessons that we can all use in our life. And
do you feel like you feel him still? I always think like if someone, I've never, I haven't lost anyone that close to me yet. And I know that there's a time that will happen. And the only thing I've had is some, you know, a lot of miscarriages, and one was a terrible miscarriage. And I feel like I still feel that baby. But do you ever feel your husband or see him or smell his presence?
So it's a great question. So someone gave me the advice before he passed away. And again, this is the benefit of having someone having advance notice. They said, Renee, ask him after you pass away, how, like, will you come out in an object? How will I know you're still there? So some people will be like, if you see a butterfly, that's me. If you see a bird, if you see whatever. So he said, well, I'll have to think about that. And so a couple days later, and this is just so him, which is such a great story. Actually, I did post this on social media. So there's this, sorry, just the funniest thing. So there's this lady, I live downtown Austin. There's lady kind of across the street, and she had this car, and her car alarm was broke. And so every time she opened up her car, this horn would be going off, and it was super annoying to him, especially when he was sick on the couch and it'd be midnight and this lady's getting home late and this car alarm would go off. And so he said, I'm going to come back as that lady's car alarm. Every time you hear this car alarm go off, he goes, I'm there. And so every time this woman's car alarm would go off, and then and it would take her like, I don't know, it would take her like 2 minutes to turn the thing off. And so there were definitely moments when I would feel him, think about him, and then the car alarm would go off.
He was there.
Yeah.
So
anytime, yeah, exactly. So anytime I hear a car alarm, that's when I know he's there. But I think I feel him more in how I operate my life, right? The wisdom I got from him and getting out of my comfort zone, saying yes to things, right? Like, so that's where I feel kind of the strength that he gave me, because I also had to be strong when he was sick. And I had to be strong once he wasn't there. I mean, I didn't realize how much safety you have when someone's by your side for 22 years and having that Band-Aid ripped off and feeling like I lost an arm or a leg. And, you know, that was
memories too. I always think about you lose your memories. Like if you're with someone for that long and you travel like we all do, the time you're in France or whatever was with that person.
Yeah.
So where's that memory?
Right.
You only have it with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just, it took me a while to really kind of get out of my comfort zone and feel that strength to, like, I always told people, like, I compare it to like a baby deer. What's it, like a fawn or a doe or whatever it's called. But, the baby comes out and they've got those wobbly legs and it took me a long time to not have those wobbly legs. And I've been really good about surrounding myself with great people, choosing new friendships and people who, just, you are who you surround yourself with. And I've really created a new life for myself and people who just, have really been compassionate to what I went through, but also encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone and kind of get back into a new life, because it's a new life, but no different when people get divorced, right? Like divorce is the same thing. It's a loss, right? It's a loss of a partner, and you have to kind of start a whole new life over again. And so now it's been like 2 years and 2 months or whatever, but like, I love my life, and I know he's proud, and I really just, I have a renewed purpose, and I can say I'm really happy. So,
it's interesting too, because it's like when you have been with somebody for so long, you're used to having another person there. So when you have a change like this, and especially as time passes and it goes on, do you leave yourself open to the possibility of loving again, of like finding someone else? Or is that like not even like on your radar? Like, or is it just like day by day?
Yeah. So, I mean, he wanted me to find love again. He wanted me to date. And I've actually been dating someone for 1.5 years. So,
that's happy news.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I didn't see it coming. I wasn't looking for anything that was, I was just trying to get my legs strong again to stand. But I've just learned that, life is unpredictable, and you just surrender to what comes its way and be open, and just, and live one day at a time, and just be open to the craziness of this world. I mean, you just never know I learned, like someone's healthy and then they're not, and you just never know what life, brings itself, but just being open to all the beauty that comes with it. I think, his life was a gift. And his death was a gift, like it just, again, the lessons I learned, because the reality is we're all going to die, right? I mean, he died sooner than I would have wanted. He died, he didn't want to die this soon, but he died at, he was almost 60. He was 11 years older than me, but I mean, that's a good long life, I mean, he wasn't dying when he was 18, so a lot of people like, oh, life's not fair, whatever. I'm like, there's no guarantees for any of us. No one says we're going to live to 100. Like, we could all be gone tomorrow. And so, and certainly, Tammin, with your husband, like, that's a close call. Like, you didn't see that coming. And so I think, it's really about, embracing today, I mean, it's all cliche, but living the best, loving the best, and not really worrying about tomorrow because today is all we have.
Mhm.
So
thank you so much.
Oh, that's the best advice,
This
isn't
has
it?
been a wonderful, Roxy and I, our biggest fears are death.
We do.
Before
We
we
have
go
it.
to sleep, I panic all the time about dying, and so does Roxy. We talk about it a lot on the podcast, and it really is that idea of surrender, because I think we all have control issues, and that's probably even now during COVID, why everyone's freaking out so much is because we just have no control over it.
yeah,
And if we learn to accept and surrender, I think our lives would be so much better and greater and
yeah.
richer.
That's I mean, that's the secret, that's the
Right.
secret.
Hard to do,
I
but it's the
yeah.
secret.
I mean, I too was fearful of death, very fearful of death. And I'm no longer fearful of death. I mean, I watched my husband die, and in front of my very eyes in my home. He died at home. And I also and this was kind of interesting. So my sister-in-law was over from France because my husband was French, and he was cremated. And actually, I have his diamond made into ashes, which is what his request was. And so I went to the cremation. That's not an American thing to do. And my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, I'm going to go," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I would never do that, and that's how they do it in other countries. And she said, "Yeah, I'm going to be there." So I chose to go with her, and I watched my husband be cremated. Now, I mean, he was in a box, and I mean, you didn't see details, but
Right.
pushing him into the oven. And wow, I never thought I watched that, but it was beautiful. And again, it was just such a gift to really embrace what life is and what death is. And so I do not fear death anymore. Again, it's surrender. It's understanding that we're all going to die, and just I really don't. I ride motorcycles. I could die any moment. I'm not going to not do that. And even with COVID, like I wasn't going to let COVID take me down. Like, now that's not to say I was being reckless and not being responsible and wearing a mask, but I am not going to give into that fear. I ride a motorcycle. I could die. I know the risks, right? But I'm certainly not going to let, COVID put me in a mental state of living in fear. And part of, getting out of my comfort zone and adrenaline and things I like, it's because I'm not going to live a life of fear. Like, I'm not going to, I fight every day to not be scared. And the world is a scary place, especially now, but I just refuse. And, that's just how I operate. So.
Wow.
Well, thank
Life
you so
lessons.
much.
Yeah. I think we need to like let go a little bit, Tam. And like, we're a little too
I don't know how to do that without some kind of alcohol or something. I don't think I've ever really let go. Not really. Well, that's not true. Both my births, because the first birth I thought I was like, when they put the epidural down my spine, I reacted to it. I think I told you my blood pressure. There's a few times I felt like I was dying, but those were 2 times that it didn't react well to me. And the second birth, I said, okay, if this is it and you're going to die, then you just have to let go. I think that was the only time that I've had to surrender is birth, because there's no other way. You can't get that baby out unless you completely surrender.
You do. And you're going through a major surgery. I mean, anything
Awake.
Yeah, I mean,
let's go back to that day and bring all the PTSD back up.
Yes, let's torture moms as much as we possibly can.
I mean, it was great. It was easy. C-sections are great. It's a great option, guys. Super easy.
So fun.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't forget to rate, subscribe and comment.
Oh, wait, before we go, can we just maybe do like 2 Mythbusters with Renee if she's got 2 minutes? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because you are the expert and we've got to know these things.
Sure.
Right.
Roxy, we always finish a podcast and Roxy's like, okay, let's go back. And the guests are like, oh my God.
I know. I'm not letting you go just yet. Okay, so we have this game called Mythbusters, and people who are watching this on YouTube, go to your podcast app, wherever you get your podcast, to listen to Renee's Mythbusters. Sam. We got a
my
lot to do,
kids are in the
Tammin.
background. I think Renee has to go to dinner.
I know.
We've got to buy more pillows. I need to buy face machines, pillows, get the sunscreen on. We'll put on tonight or tomorrow, just in case. Yes.
Upload the podcast.
Yes. So much to do. It never ends.
Well, again, guys, don't forget to rate, subscribe and comment. We give you
Renee, where is the best place to find you?
ReneeRouleau.com. Renee Rouleau is my personal Instagram page, and Renee Rouleau Skincare is my company Instagram page. And I have a lot of, I'll be putting your podcast on my website because I have all my podcast interviews on my About page. But take the skin type quiz and get the best skin of your life.
And she has the best products. Tammin and I both use your products. They are amazing.
Oh,
yes. I did a little tutorial.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you.
Well, thanks guys for listening to another amazing show. And we are Women on Top Official on Instagram.
And Women on Top Podcast on Facebook.
And I am Tammin Sursak.
And I am Roxy Manning.
And we are
Women
on